welcome back to my channel DIY with NC. So today I'm going to be showing you how I made this free wide leg palazzo pants with an elastic waistband. So when cutting your palazzo, the first step to do is to fold your fabric into two and mark the starting line, which I have done in this video, as you can see. Now this is going to serve as the starting line for all my measurements. So since I'll be using a waistband, I'll be attaching an elastic waistband to this. My waistband, I'll use 1.5 inch for it. So when taking my measurement, I'll take my tape up and start my measurement from 1.5 inch. That is to say, I'll be minusing 1.5 inch from my measurement. So after placing the 1.5 inch marker on my starting line, I'll now mark my hip line. Then after marking my hip line, I'll go ahead to mark my crotch depth. For my crotch depth, I'm using 11.5 inches, as you can see in the video. So after marking my crotch depth, I'll go down by 2 inches and mark my thigh line. Now this is optional. And now we have our waistline, hip line, crotch depth, and a thigh line. The next thing I'll do is to take the full measurement of these pants. Now don't forget to minus your 1.5 inch when taking your full length. So for this pants, I'm going to be making use of 42 inches for the full length. I'll go ahead and mark this on my fabric, then use my ruler to extend the lines and make it more visible. So after doing this, I'll now input my measurements on the fabric. One thing you should always take note of is that whenever you are cutting a pant that uses an elastic waistband, your hip measurement and your waist measurement will always be the same. This is because you are using an elastic waistband. So for my hip measurements, it's 40 divided by 4, which gives me 10. And since this is a free pant, I'll be adding an allowance of 4 inches to it. Then I'll go ahead and mark what I have on my hip line, on my waistline as well. So on my hip line, I have a total of 14 inches. That's 10 inches hip measurement and 4 inches allowance. So on my waistline, I'll be taking the same 14 inches. On my crouch line, I'll also take that same measurement there, which is 14 inches. I've marked them. So on my waistline, 14 inches, hip line, 14 inches, and the crouch, 14 inches. I'll go in with my ruler and mark a straight line connecting those three lines together. The next thing we'll do is to get our crotch depth. So to get our crotch depth, it will be your hip measurements divided by 4. So in this case, the hip measurement is 40 inches divided by 4 will give you 10 inches. Now we go ahead and divide that 10 inches by 4. Dividing that 10 inches by 4, you have 2.5. That's 2.5 inches. So our crotch depth for this palazzo pants is going to be 2.5 inches. I'll go ahead and mark that on the fabric so that I'll connect it from my hip line to my crotch line. So from my hip line, I'm going to connect it to that crotch line, as you can see. So you just curve it from the hip line to the crotch line, and there we have our crotch depth. So for my tie line, I'm going to take whatever measurement it is I have on my crotch line, the total measurement on my crotch line, and then I'll minus 2 inches from it. And then that is what I'll use on my tie line. Now, like I said earlier, this is optional. If you want your palazzo pant to be all straight to the ground, you can go ahead and then take your crouch measurements down to the full length. But because I do not want mine to be completely straight, I want it to have a little bit of shape. That is why I'm taking off 2 inches from the crotch line on my thigh line. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that same measurement all the way from the thigh line to the full length of my pants, as you can see in this video. Then I'll go in with my ruler and then connect those lines down to the full length of the pants. I'll go ahead and cut it out. This is the front part of my pants. I've gone ahead to place the front part on my fabric, and I'll be using this to cut out the back part of our pants. Now please take notes, when you're cutting the back parts, you would have to allow at least 2 to 3 inches allowance on the waist part, like I did. So the allowance you have up here, that is what you should have. This is because when cutting the waistline on the back, you have to come up by at least 1.5 inch and then connect it to the front waistline. That is why we have this allowance here. So for the back, when cutting it, we'll just add 2 inches allowance to our crotch depth. Like you see in the video, I'll just mark 2 inches here on the crotch line. And then once I'm done marking that, I'll go over to my waistline and mark 2 inches as well on the waistline and take it down to the hip line. Once I'm done marking this, I'll connect it from my waistline all the way to the crotch line. So we're basically marking 2 inches on the waistline, 2 inches on the hip line, and 2 inches on the crotch line. Then we connect this like so. After connecting it, we'll come up by 1.5 inch. Remember what I told you earlier, on the waistline you're going to come up by 1.5 inch. So from where we have that 2 inch extension, we're going to connect it from that point to the front waistline. So using a ruler, we'll connect where we have the 1.5 inch coming out on the 2 inch extension. We'll connect that to the front waistline. After doing this, we'll go ahead and connect 2 inches all the way down to the full length of our pants. So from the crotch line where we came out by 2 inches, we are going to do the same thing on the tie line. We'll mark 2 inches on the tie line and then trace 2 inches, that same 2 inches, all the way to the full length of our pants. So that is what we'll do here. We mark 2 inches on the crotch line, on the thigh line, 2 inches, and then we also mark the same thing all the way to the full length of the pants. I'll go ahead and cut this out so we can proceed to the next step. After cutting out my fabric, I also go ahead and open up the center front of both pants, both on the front and the back part of the pant, as you can see in the video. I'm going to take this to my machine and sew the front pieces together from the waistline down to the crotch line using 1/2 inch. I'll also do the same thing for the back piece. I've gone ahead to sew my front pieces and the back pieces together. So this is what it now looks like. Our pants is already taking shape. The next step will be to cut out our pocket. So you fold your fabric into 4 like I did here, and place your hand over the fabric like so. Using your chalk, you're going to trace out your palm, as you can see in the video. So once I'm done doing this, I'll then use my scissors to cut this out, and this becomes my pocket. After cutting out the pockets, the next step will be to attach it to the pant. We're going to do this right sides facing each other. Now to do this, on your pant from the waistline, you come down by 1 inch before placing the pocket on it and then taking your pin to pin it down like you see me do. After attaching my pockets to my pant, I've gone ahead to pin both the front piece and the back piece together. So I'll be taking this over to my sewing machine and I'll sew it using 1/2 inch from the waistline through the pockets and then down to the full length of my pants. So after joining the front piece and the back piece together, I've gone ahead to join the crotch area as well using 1/2 inch. So I'm quickly going to turn this over to the right side so we can now see what our pants looks like. The next step will be to take our round waist measurement, so we can use that to cut out the fabric that we'll be using to make our elastic waistband. So for this palazzo pants, the round waist measurement is 57 inches, but we'll be adding an extra 3 inches to make it 60 inches. Okay, for the seam allowance on both sides, both the front and the back side of the pants. Okay, so if there's an excess, you cut it off. It's better there's an excess than for you not to have enough. All right, guys, so I'm done with my waistband. I've gone ahead to iron it, and there's a crucial part that I did not show you guys in the video, which I'm going to quickly talk about, and that's going to be the front part of the waistband, the center front of the waistband. So that is what I'm showing you guys here. Now remember, you're going to be passing your elastic through it. So what I do is to measure 1 inch from the top there, and then I marked the 1 inch. After measuring that 1 inch, I came down from that point where I have the 1 inch. I came down by another 1 inch, and then I marked it. And then from that point to the end, I'll be sewing it by half of an inch. So from the top there where I have the 1 inch, I'll sew half of an inch and stop there. Then the remaining 1 inch, I won't be sewing anything there. That place will be left bare because that's where your rope and your elastic will pass through. Then I'll sew from the other end down, so that that space we'll have in between there will now serve as the opening for your elastic and also your rope if you want to be using a rope in your palazzo pants. So when you turn this over, that part where you have the opening for that 1 inch, that is the part that will be facing the front of your pants. When you're joining it, that part is going to be in front of your palazzo pants. Okay, so here this is our palazzo pant, and I'll show you how to attach the waistband to it. So we're going to take this waistband, that part that has that opening where you have your 1 inch where you're supposed to pass your elastic and your rope. You're going to take that part. Let's take that part to be the front part. You place it on your pants facing the right side of your pants. You're going to make sure that that part is facing the center part of your palazzo. That opening is directly where you have the joining of the front side of your pants. So you will take your pin and then put it in place there. Then you attach every other part all around the palazzo. That place where you have the opening now acts as the midpoint for your sewing. So your sewing is going to start at that point, and then you will sew all round the waistline and then get to that same point again. So that is how we are going to be attaching this waistband to our palazzo pants. So guys, I've gone ahead to join my waistband to my pants, and if you notice, you're going to see the opening that we have here. Now this opening is so we can be able to pass our elastic or the rope through the waistband. For this elastic waistband, I'll be making use of a 1.5 inch elastic, as you can see. So initially the waist measurement is 30 inches, but I'll be minusing 3 inches from the waist measurement, which is 27 inch. So for the elastic band, what I'll be cutting out is 27 inches. After cutting this out, I'll be using this safety pin to pass the elastic through the opening that we have on our waistband. So I'll go ahead and stitch this area down before releasing the elastic to go into the band. So I'm done making my stitch and have gone ahead to release the elastic into the band. So I'll go ahead and arrange the pants like you see me do, so that the elastic will be sitting properly in the band and not folding. So the next step will be to create the double line effect on our waistband, and to do this you sew half an inch from the top of the waistband, and then from the bottom you'll be sewing half an inch up. So now when sewing, make sure to stretch out the elastic and the fabric as well, so that you will get a nice finishing. So here guys, I am done with the double stitch on the waistband. So after making this double stitch, you can go ahead and pass a rope through the middle casing that we have on the band. That's the casing where we passed our elastic. The last thing you'll need to do is to finish up the hem of your pants, and that is everything there is about making this pants. So you can see what it actually looks like. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.